Blame me if I don't love you, okay? Hi, friends. I'm Emma. Welcome back to the show on TLC Next Chapter. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs up. At the end of season 19 of Sister Wives, the whole Brown family gathered in Wyoming to bid farewell to Garrison Brown, Cody Brown's son, with his ex-wife, Janelle Brown, who passed away by suicide in March 2024. Fans saw Cody physically digging his son's grave as the family buried Garrison alongside his grandparents. It was a tearful and heart-wrenching season finale. Even with their long-standing rivalries, the Brown family temporarily put aside their differences to come together for this profoundly sad goodbye. In the aftermath of such profound sadness, some family members also started to consider letting go of old hurts to start healing. In season 19, we find Madison Brush wanting to apologize to Robyn Brown's kids. While the family is meeting in Wyoming for the funeral, Janelle explains that the state was very important to Garrison, representing her own and Cody's intense ties to the place. That is why she wanted him buried there. She states, "The Browns have deep roots in Wyoming. He heals the brokenhearted." The season finale has the family standing somberly over Garrison's grave and giving their last goodbyes. Janelle says to the camera, "I feel the weight of the urn as I pick it up, and I'm just like, okay." I feel like there's something symbolic about giving him to Cody. And even though we've had huge differences, in that moment, we were just parents. She holds the urn of Garrison and hands it to Cody, who sets it carefully into the ground. Other relatives also appear willing to release old hostilities, at least for the time being. Madison Brush, Janelle and Cody's second oldest, speaks about hoping after the funeral to reconnect not only with her dad, but also with Robyn's children, Cody's other wife. Speaking with Leon Brown, Mary Brown's son, she responds, "I'm still angry about the way it all went down with Dad, but I can decide how I react and how I show up in response." She continues, "I'm sad for him. I genuinely feel sorry for Robyn's kids. I'd be like, I have nothing against you. And if I've ever hurt you in any way, I'm sorry." She went on, "I don't know what else to say other than that. If I did hurt you in any way, I really apologize." Robyn's older children from her first marriage, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna, are not presently on good terms with most of Christine and Janelle Brown's children. One major cause of the split has been the longtime perception of Cody playing favorites between Robyn's children and the other children. But from the kids' point of view, they've indicated that as kids, they really felt shut out and excluded by the rest of the Brown clan. As told by Janelle Brown, the death of Garrison ushered in some healing to the family. While in the same episode, she describes how the senseless loss of her son cemented the bonds of the Brown siblings. She elaborates, "Garrison's passing has been heartbreaking and enormously difficult, but also brought the family closer in some ways. There's still no true reconciliation with Cody or anything like that, but between the siblings, where there were conflicts and broken relationships, some of those have been mended. So here we are. It's a really sad reason to be together, but we're also creating a new memory, one where everyone is present." In a confessional, Cody revealed that despite the strained relationship he had with Janelle, he specifically asked her if he could be the one to dig Garrison's grave. He described it as a deeply personal and meaningful act. "Everybody asked Janelle if she would do it, and she said no," he says. "This trip is difficult. It's sad," he admits. "I'm bringing my son home to bury him. And it is weird because things between Janelle and me are tough at the moment. But I asked her if I could do it, and she was kind. She said, 'I think that would be really sweet.' I'm glad she looked at it that way, because I really needed to do it." Unfortunately, Cody and Garrison were not in good standing with each other prior to Garrison's passing. During a September 2024 interview with People magazine, Cody discussed the strained relationship. "We might have been chatting more," he said. "We'd text and things like that, but in retrospect, there's just so much more we might have done. It was like I was involved in my life, he was involved in his, and we just figured when it's time, we'll catch up. It was like there was always going to be time, like we had forever." He further said that, in retrospect, There might have been more attempts at keeping up consistently. Checking in, the 18-year-old veteran dad said in that same interview that he's now saddled with a huge dose of regret, wishing he spent more time with his son. I'd like to go out to eat with him again. I'd like to sit across from him, drink a beer, and watch him attempt to make me laugh. Because that's just who he was, he said. The only actual regret that I have is, man, I wish I'd done that more often. What's the status of Madison's relationship with her dad, Cody Brown? Even with Madison's efforts to reconcile with Robyn's kids, her connection with Cody seems still broken. At the premiere of the new season, Janelle revealed, I know Maddie hasn't spoken to her dad. He hasn't called her, and she hasn't called him either. And she's totally cut herself off from Robyn too. She's basically cut off both of them. Janelle thinks that the estrangement largely begins with Cody not making an effort to connect with Madison's children, his own grandchildren. She just doesn't want him involved unless he's going to be consistent and committed, Janelle said. In November of 2024, Madison announced on an episode of her podcast, The Authentic Society, that she had severed all contact with Cody. Cody doesn't respect boundaries. He expects everyone to play by his rules. And I'm just not interested in doing that anymore, she said, according to People. She added that past experiences with her relatives also led to her stepping away from certain family members. My father would get extremely angry when I'd say, I don't know why you're shocked. Or if I said, you asked me a question. I'm just being truthful. He couldn't tolerate that type of honesty, and that's part of the reason I went no contact. It was like he couldn't bear for there to be a mirror reflected back at him. She went on, I always receive messages like, you should forgive your dad. You should respect him. But I don't think those individuals actually get it. Their dad experience may be totally different from mine. There was plenty of anger from him. And he'd always tell me, that's not true. And I'd be like, yes, it is. I lived it. She summed up, some individuals simply do not deserve to be inside your world. Sister wives, Cody and Robyn made Garrison's funeral a family vacation, and enraged fans, the new Sister Wives episode included Cody, Robyn, Janelle, and the rest of the Brown clan. And what viewers learned made many angry. Crying over Garrison's death, the family decided to go to Wyoming to bury his remains. But what came out on top, for all the wrong reasons, was the behavior of Cody and Robyn, which left most viewers absolutely disgusted. We had hoped Cody would show more genuine sympathy, but instead, it became clear he was focused primarily on himself and his cherished little family. His behavior, along with Robyn's, drew widespread criticism, and not without reason. He was Garrison's father, and after his son's death, he managed to shed what many called crocodile tears. Think of the nerve, taking the gloomy journey to Wyoming and making it appear like a family vacation. Fans flooded social media to shame them for being insensitive, accusing the couple of being tone-deaf in their actions. Cody even took his family out for ice cream and sightseeing, all while allegedly grieving. People were horrified. For many, this was a new low. Sister wives, Cody regrets having a bad relationship with Garrison. As viewers are well aware, Cody Brown has had a troubled, declining relationship with most of his children, particularly since the pandemic. Today, he is only close to his and Robyn's children. When Garrison attempted to mend their relationship, Cody wasn't interested. Now that his son is dead, Cody confesses to feeling regret about how things went between them. He admits freely to carrying unresolved emotions and a heavy heart. Still trying to come to terms with Garrison's death, he wishes he'd made the attempt to make things right sooner, and that he hadn't allowed so much time to pass. Sister wives, Robyn and Cody push the envelope of what's respectful. On the latest Sister Wives show, the Brown family finally broached the subject of Garrison's death on camera. They all made a collective decision to meet up in Wyoming to bury him properly. Even though years had lapsed since his death, they felt that the time was finally ripe to bury him. The event itself wasn't particularly elaborate, but Janelle said she was thankful that the family could gather together and was openly emotional about the experience. Cody also got teary-eyed, saying he wanted to pay his son one last tribute. But his words didn't live up to his actions. He took Robyn and their children with him and converted the burial trip into a family outing. They sampled ice cream, toured the sights, and even took a stagecoach to enjoy a Wild West show. While Cody was professing to grieve, he appeared to be having the time of his life. In good spirits with his family, Cody was pictured holding hands, having ice cream, and walking the streets, a sight that did not sit well with most fans. Fans were quick to express their anger. He didn't even talk to his son during the last 5 years of his life, and now he's making this all about himself. One fan wrote on X, formerly Twitter. One other fan scolded him as an egotistical loser, shocked at the way he used Garrison's funeral to look like a weekend getaway. The notion that any parent would handle their own child's funeral as if it were a party was incomprehensible to many. Some of the Brown family members even thought his behavior was strange, but did nothing about it. Whereas Janelle grieved deeply for Garrison, Cody appeared to be busy creating memories with his other family. It's now getting to the point where it feels like Cody has adopted the villain role in his own personal life drama. Under Wyoming's gloomy skies, the season finale played out. A broken family, temporarily at least, stood together, a united front in mourning, bidding farewell to a son who was taken too early. What started out as a plural marriage reality show had gradually been transformed into a gritty depiction of loss, alienation, and the faint but unyielding strands of love still connecting them. Janelle stood in the mountain gusts, her arms embracing the urn that contained her son's ashes. Burial in Wyoming wasn't practical for their family alone, though it was practical. It was an emotional choice. The state, characterized by memories of early childhood and laughter echoes, was bound to Garrison's self. Wyoming was not geography. It was a shared past, part of Garrison's being. The biting air reflected the chill distance that had accrued among family members over time. But today, their mutual grief overcame the ancient wounds. For one fleeting instant, anger and broken connections yielded to something more profound. Commonality of sorrow. When Janelle handed the urn to her ex-boyfriend Cody, she said, "In that moment, we weren't exes. We were just parents, saying goodbye." The hurt she bore wasn't just in her arms. It was in the space between individuals who once referred to one another as family. And as Cody personally dug the grave, a father burying his son, the man so often perceived as the mastermind of separation appeared to find, at last, a moment of quiet. In a moment of uncharacteristic humility, Cody requested permission to dig his son's grave, and Janelle consented. She realized that sometimes silence can speak louder than words. Pain, overwhelming though it is, can shatter the doors to an unlikely healing. Garrison's passing resonated far beyond his parents. His sister Madison, who had long had a tense relationship with Cody, was drawn into an undertow of emotion. Being honest in conversation with Leon, a member of the family who knew the fine balance between honesty and loyalty, Madison conceded, "I'm angry." She also understood something deeper. I get to decide how I respond. I can respond better. One unexpected and emotional change occurred when Madison said she wanted to apologize to Robyn's children, who had sometimes felt like outsiders, or even enemies. Quietly, she added, "If I ever hurt you, I'm sorry." It hadn't been simple for them either. Robyn's children from the first marriage often felt relegated to the sidelines, as real or perceived favoritism cut deep gulfs in the family. But death has a way of erasing past resentment. Even hostility started to lose its vigor in the face of death. Janelle, observing the dynamic of the family change, had a moment of enlightenment. Missing Garrison has been completely devastating, but in some way, it's made space for bonding between siblings who were at odds. At the same time, Cody wrestled with the words to express the remorse that now lingered over him. He admitted to the gradual disintegration of his relationship with Garrison, a failure constructed on missed phone calls, dismissed texts, and the illusory notion that there would always be more time. "I thought we had forever," he said. "I wish I'd made more time." Every memory was burdensome for him. Every dinner they never shared, every conversation that was never had. He recalled how much Garrison enjoyed joking, how he used to make others laugh. And now Everything he said hung in the shadows of what would never exist. Madison, for her part, remained aloof. Janelle provided a stark but candid reason. Maddie needs consistency. She needs her kids to be seen, not merely visited from time to time, and Cody has not given that to them. In front of the cameras, Madison was more candid. She spoke of being compelled to play by rules set by her father, rules that insisted on loyalty on his terms and would brook no boundaries or truth. He didn't want honesty, she said. He wanted control. Her voice held the power of someone who had at last discovered her own. Years of being ignored, dismissed, and criticized had caused them to drift apart. This was not a minor argument. It was a tear, caused by years of invisibility. People keep telling me to forgive him, she acknowledged. But they don't get it. My father isn't the man they believe he is. Perhaps the most painful truth of all was that grief doesn't just highlight who we've lost. It shines a light on the fractures that existed long before death arrived, in the spaces where love was never nurtured and connection was long denied. Tensions came to a head in a recent episode of the long-running family saga that has captivated audiences for over a decade. What was meant to be a mournful unity moment and homage to a son who had died too young became instead a maelstrom of controversy, emotional detachment, and public fury. As the family traveled by foot through the gusty mountains of the Pacific Northwest to carry out Garrison's dying requests, audiences viewed intently. At the center of the grief was a mother who had long been the family's unassuming anchor, Janelle. She was overcome, her sorrow unbridled. She wept uncontrollably, every tear a tale of sleepless nights and a pain that never subsided. With shaking hands, holding a picture of her son, she testified to the loss of dreams, the weight of grief, and the lost moments that could never be regained. When she talked about how Garrison used to fill every room he walked into, and how his lack now left a crater gouged in her universe, her voice broke. This was supposed to be a last act of togetherness, a moment to look back, to honor, and maybe even to heal old wounds. But those illusions were soon dashed. The patriarch of the family, along with his preferred companion and offspring, appeared to turn the agenda from remembrance to recreation. Audiences were left aghast at happy photographs taken against picturesque backgrounds, decadent indulgences, smiles, and sightseeing tours. What was presented as a memorial trip had, to most, become a mere family vacation. The discord was striking. One segment of the family drowning in grief, the other wallowing in frivolous pleasure. They visited historical sites, cited the local attractions, and participated in happy group excursions. Online, shock gave way to outrage as longtime fans of the family's odyssey expressed feelings of betrayal and disillusionment. It seemed to many that ego and emotional aloofness had stomped on holy ground. Before the camera, the family matriarch, a longtime source of contention, seemed to demonstrate remorse as she dwelled on lost opportunities and piling regrets. His voice welled up with tears as he spoke of the desire to turn back time, to mend the widening gap between him and his son. But though his words were seemingly heartfelt, viewers had a hard time believing them. As always, it was not words, but deeds that did his apologizing. His dynamics with his children beyond his nuclear family were contentious for years. There had been overtures of reconciliation, begun by the departed son. They were rebuffed not with affection, but with coolness, silence, or distance. Now, the father sits tormented by the what-ifs, burdened by the ghosts of possibilities missed. But instead of dwelling in that sorrow, he appeared to distract himself, with pastries, with grins, with fabricated moments for the eye of the camera. To some, he seemed to be rewriting history in the moment, painting a portrait of fatherly love that had not existed when it was needed. Worse still was the disparity between his expression and hers. While she withdrew into herself, drowning in grief, he stood feet from her, smiling for cameras, posing next to stagecoaches and costumed characters. The emotional divide between them was unmissable. Not just the way they cried, but the reason they were there in the first place. Online, the vilification was quick and brutal. Fans expressed frustration, incredulity, and sympathy for the bereaved mother. "I can't even believe what I just saw," posted one viewer. This wasn't a tribute. This was a holiday. He didn't even talk to his son for years, and now he's behaving as though he cared. Unreal. The show's central couple has been criticized in the past, but this time, with the shadow of a son's death hanging over it, the reaction was more passionate, more emotional, and more merciless than ever. They've been the brunt of public disdain for years, blamed for favoritism, coldness, and self-interest above all. But this incident hit a much deeper note. It wasn't another case of poor judgment. It was a betrayal of legacy, a dismissal of a life that was worth living to be remembered with dignity and integrity. The memorial itself was subdued, personal, saturated in sorrow. There were no orations, no finery, only a fractured family standing next to a plain grave, allowing the wind to sweep their words and their tears across the Wyoming sky. For a few, that unadorned simplicity spoke more loudly than anything else was capable of speaking. But for the mother, the one who loved with every fiber of her being the son who was lost, the pain was unique. No one else carried the weight the way she did. Her sorrow was raw, not for the cameras, not staged. It was the anguish of a mother whose world had gone dark. At the lodge, meanwhile, the mood changed overnight. Meals were eaten together, board games were played, laughter resonated down corridors, and strangely, the name of the young man they had just buried was hardly mentioned. What was supposed to be a memorial became instead a much-needed break. The father looked at ease, smiling alongside his wife, teasing his kids. Some family members withdrew quietly from there. With more details coming out about what occurred behind the scenes, the cracks long spoken of in hushed tones became jarring and apparent. The grandmother who raised the young man became part of a more tacit support group, one that needed no explanations. Her silence spoke volumes more than words ever could. Now, everyone is left trying to wrap their heads around one tough question. What does responsibility look like in the midst of mourning? Can a person mourn yet seem indifferent at the same time? Can a person be happy and heartbroken simultaneously when your actions don't quite match? This episode might well become a turning point, not only for the show, but for the family itself. Because grief does not only show pain, it shows truth. And what people saw was not a oneness, but a sense of alienation, starkly painted against a somber background.